I welcome you all to the video lecture on the topic food security in India. This is my second lecture in a sequence on the topic food security in India. In the earlier lecture, I explained the concept of food security and I also mentioned some components of food security. The components which are essential for measuring the level of food security in India. In this particular lecture, let us start our discussion on the current status of food security in India, or we can say the current position of food security in India. While discussing about the current position of food security, we need to discuss three important components, three important points. The first one is availability of food grains, second one is affordability of food grains, and third one is accessibility of food grains. While discussing about the availability of the food grains, we need to consider the quantitative availability of food grains and qualitative availability of food grains. Quantitative availability means the total amount of food grains or total quantity of food grains and whether that total quantity is enough to meet the requirements of our population. In the second point, qualitative availability of food grains means whether the people of India are consuming the quality food grains, what are the dietary requirements, and what type of requirements we are fulfilling in our country. What about the quality of food? Whether the quality of food is good enough to meet the dietary requirements of individual, that we will see in this particular point on quality. So in this way, while discussing about the availability, we consider quantity of food grains and quality of food grains. Now I will explain the term food grain. The term food grain, it comprises of two different types of grains. The first one is cereals. Cereals, under this category, different types of grains comes under this particular category. Wheat, rice, maize, millets like sorghum means jowari, millet means bajri. These are the grains which comes under the category of cereals. The second category of food grain is of pulses. Pulses. Pulses means in Hindi and Marathi we say tur dal, udid dal, moong dal, etc. These are the pulses, and combination of cereals and pulses is known as food grains. While discussing about the availability of the food grains in country, we discuss about these two categories, cereals and pulses. Now the second point is about the affordability of the food grains. The affordability in this particular point, we consider the purchasing power of an individual to buy the food grains from the market. The income level of the people in the country, whether all income groups of our country are in a position to purchase these food grains at the market price from the open market. If so, how much of population is in a position to purchase it from the market? And prices of the food grains also make an effect on the purchasing power of the individual. Just considering the quantity or available amount of food grain in the country or available quantity of food grain in the country is not enough. We must consider the purchasing power of the people to buy that particular commodity, the income level of the people in the country to buy that commodity. That we will discuss in the second point, which is about the affordability. While discussing on the affordability, we do consider the prices of food grains in our country. What was the trend of the prices of the food grains? And the third point about the discussion on food security is about the accessibility. Accessibility means whether the amount of food grain or the available food grain, what is the mechanism to distribute the available food grain among different classes of the people, among the different strata of the people, whether how the poor people are accessing this food grain, what is the position of middle class and higher income groups in order to access this available food grain. It means what is the distribution mechanism, how the government is distributing these food grains among the different classes of the people, among poor, among middle class, among higher class, from where they are getting, from where they are collecting these food grains in the mechanism of the country. The public distribution system is the mechanism of the government which used to supply the food grains to the poor people in our country. So, this is the accessibility on which we will discuss while discussing on the current scenario of food security. Now, step by step, we are going to discuss these 3 points. What are the current scenario of these 3 points? That is, what is the current scenario of availability, what about affordability, and what about the accessibility? At the very first outset, I am going to explain the current position of availability of food grains. India started the planned economic development since 1951. From 1951 to 1965-66 means in this 15 years span from 1951 to 1965-66, India was not attained the self-sufficiency in the production of food grains. The insufficient food grain supply was there in the country. India was not self-sufficient as far as the production of food grains was concerned. We used to import food grains from other countries in order to meet the requirements, food requirement of our population. We were dependent on other countries for the supply of food grains and to meet the basic needs of our people. But in the mid of 1960s, we initiated the program of Green Revolution. And in 1970s, through implementation of the policy of Green Revolution, we started increasing production of food grains through high yielding variety of seeds, means increasing productivity of food grains. We initiated from this policy of Green Revolution, and as a result of the implementation of Green Revolution in 1970s and mid of 1960s, in the year 1976, since 1976, India became self-sufficient in food grain production. Particularly, just as I mentioned, the production of food grains means what is expected in the production of food grains: production of wheat, rice, millet, sorghum, maize. These all are the grains which comes under the category of food grains, and pulses also comes in this particular category. But as a result of green revolution, as a result of increased production of food grains, where we concentrated just on the production of wheat and rice. In the northern part of India, the production of wheat increased, and in the southern part, particularly in Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh, the production of rice increased as a result of the implementation of green revolution. But we have not concentrated on the increasing production of other grains, or particularly increasing production of pulses. So therefore, the defective cropping pattern we implemented in this process of green revolution, we concentrated on the production of wheat and rice. Particularly, we concentrated on the increasing production of cereals, and particularly wheat and rice production increased, and we have not given due attention towards the increasing production of pulses in our country. So therefore, in order to meet a standard dietary requirement, it is essential to take an intake of cereals as well as pulses. But in our country, the cereals, particularly wheat and rice, are enough to meet the requirements, but the availability of pulses is very lower. We are not producing enough amount of pulses in our country. As per the statistical data, the per capita per day availability of cereals in our country is 390 grams. 390 grams. This is per capita per day availability of cereals, particularly per capita per day availability of wheat and rice only. And at the other hand, if we see the per capita per day availability of pulses, it comes to near about 31 grams. So here we can see the difference between the availability of quantitative availability of the food grains, 930 grams and just 31 grams. And in the production, total production of food grains, the 94% of production, it comprises of cereals, and only 6% of production we used to do for pulses. So therefore, even though the quantity of food grain is available in our country, but in order to meet the standard dietary needs, the quality food grain, we fail to access the quality food grains to the people of our country. So this is what the first point on the current status of food security, that is availability. At last, I would like to say, I would like to conclude with this particular point as the in the current scenario, we are producing enough and excess amount of food grains. The quantity of food grain production is enough and excess, but we fail to provide quality food grains, we fail to provide qualitative food supply to our people. In the near coming 2050, definitely we will face, as we as we consider the increasing proportion of population, we can say in the near coming 2050, again the India will face the food deficiency problem, because at the one side the degrading environmental condition situation is going on, and at the other side the population is continuously increasing. The increasing population and the declining position of the environment, definitely in the near coming 2050, India will again face the food scarcity problem or insufficient food production problem. This is the first point regarding the availability, quantitative and qualitative availability of food grains. Now I will move towards the second point, that is about the accessibility, affordability. In this second point, affordability, we discuss about the purchasing power and increasing prices of food grains. Purchasing power of the individuals and prices of food grains. Mere consideration of the quantity available is not enough for food security. The second important component is affordability. Whether the people of the particular country are in a position to purchase these food grains from the open market, whether they are having enough amount of income to purchase these grains from the market. This is what the point affordability we are discussing about. In India, near about 42% of the income the average Indian will spend on the food grains. Particularly the lower income group people, the people who comes under the lower income group, poor people, they do spend 75% of their income on just food grains. And apart from these food grains, we used to purchase from the market various other essential commodities like vegetables, fruits, egg, meat, milk, milk products, then edible oil, sugar. These are other essential required commodities. But the people from the lower income group, they do spend 70 to 75% of their amount of income just on food grains. Food grains means wheat, rice, millet, maize, pulses, in order to purchase these commodities. And round about average on an average in India, the 42% we do spend on the food grains. Average Indian spend 42% of his income on purchasing food grains. Since 2005, consider the span from 2005 to 2008, the prices of the food grains in India increased by 21%. The prices of the essential commodities, the wholesale price index of the essential commodities, it increased by 21%. And the 30% of lower income group and 40% of middle income group, the population which comes under these two category, 30% of low income group and 40% of middle income group, their income level was stable during the year. It means the income of these people was constant, was stable, it has not increased. But at the other hand, the prices of the commodities, the prices of the food grains increased, the wholesale price index increased by 21%. Means the prices of the commodities are increasing, but income of the people is not increasing at the same rate. So therefore, it become very difficult for the poor people to purchase these food grains from the market. As here I mentioned, the average Indian spends 42% of his income on food grain. Poor people spend 70 to 75% of his income, but the income level of these people is constant, particularly middle income groups and low income groups. So therefore it is creating a difficulty for the affordability of food grains. Whether poor people are in a position to purchase these all amount of food grains from the market, whether their income is enough to purchase these commodities, as they spend the most of their income on food grains itself, then what about the position of other commodities, how they do purchase the vegetables, fruits, eggs, milk products, edible oil, sugar, jaggery and other essential commodities, whether they are in a position to purchase this spent on these commodities. So this is the important question regarding the affordability of the food grains. And the last point is about the accessibility. In case of accessibility of food grains, means what is the distribution mechanism? Distribution mechanism means how the government distribute the food grains among the people. What is the mechanism to distribute these food grains among the people? As usual, the rich income group people, they do purchase these food grains from the open market at the higher prices. But what about the poor people? In order to make an access of food grains to the poor people, the government initiated the system that is known as public distribution system, that is rationing shops. We all are aware with this particular concept, rationing shops. Up to 1960, these rationing shops, they are used to stabilize the prices of food grains. Means the government used to distribute food grains, particularly wheat and rice, from these rationing shops at a stable price for every family, for each and every family of the country. Up to 1960, the, the intention of the public distribution system is to maintain price stability in the country, particularly the price stability of the food grains. But since 1980, the objective of this public distribution system, it changed, and it became, it was used for the implementation of the welfare program. Welfare program means to provide different types of commodities from this public distribution system: wheat, rice, edible oil, cereals, pulses, sugar, kerosene oil, clothing, soap. These are the different variety of commodities the government started distributing to the general public of our country through this public distribution system. Means apart from food grain, as a part of the welfare program, government decided to distribute these different commodities to the general public. But in the 1990s, particularly from 1997, this up to 1997, this public distribution system was open. Government opened this system for all the people of the country. But from 1997, government restricted the beneficiaries of rationing shops, the beneficiaries of public distribution system. Only limited beneficiaries allowed to get the essentials from this public distribution system, particularly the people belonging to the below poverty line. The government changed the criteria to get benefits from this public distribution system. And this is the most important mechanism which distributes the food grains, which used to distribute the food grains among the people. Nowadays, we can see this public distribution system, they are they are distributing two or three commodities, particularly wheat and rice, and sometimes they used to distribute the kerosene oil from this particular system. and they limited commodities they are supplying now through this particular system. And mostly the problems of these public distribution systems are emerging now, because the most important problem is that the regional inequality we can see in the distribution, in the public distribution system. Regional inequality means in particular regions, in particular states, they are working in a well position, but in other states they are not working up to the mark. It is not providing the food grains to particularly the below poverty line people. The other people who are not comes under the below poverty line, they are also getting the benefits of this system now. Only this public distribution system concentrated in urban areas, and they have not given the due attention towards the rural areas. This is the another defect of this system. And nowadays the expenditure of the government is increasing day by day on this particular program. So therefore the excess burden is there over on the government for the distribution of the food grains among the people, each and every individual of the country. These are some of the problems of public distribution system we are facing now. So this is the position about the accessibility. In giving access of food grains to the poor people, there is a lack of proper mechanism with the government. There is a defective system working in our country for giving access of food grains to the poor people who do spend 75% of their income on just purchasing these items. So therefore the position of food security in India is what we can say is quite unsatisfactory, because in case of the availability, the quantity is available but quality food grains are not available to the public. In case of affordability, the prices of the essentials are increasing, and at the same rate the income of the maximum number of people is not increasing. And in case of accessibility, the access of the food grain, there is no proper mechanism for the distribution of food grains among the general public of our country. So in this way, this is what I explained about the current situation or the current position of food security in India. In this lecture, I stop here. Thank you.